Well, good morning, folks. And it's a Wednesday morning, and it's another beautiful day here in Lake City. So praise God for that. This would be September 23rd, and we're getting closer and closer to where I'm going to be gone, and you're going to be watching this pre-recorded. And I've just got one more version of the pre-recorded to do, and so I'm doing good on that. And then I will wait till Sunday to start uploading those to YouTube. But at any rate, today we are in the sixth chapter. We're second day in the sixth chapter of Luke. We're going to look at verses 6 through 11, and it picks up where we left off yesterday with these the two back-to-back incidents of challenging Jesus about Sabbath observation and what does the Sabbath mean and what's the Sabbath all about. So today we're going to, yesterday we were dealing with them walking through the grain fields, remember, and plucking some of the grain and eating it, and that gleaning constituted work. And so we have that going on. Today we're dealing with the man with the withered hand. So it's a little different deal than picking food for your bodily sustenance, healing someone who is sick, deformed, what have you. We don't really know why his hand is withered, whether it was an accident or whether he was born that way. It doesn't go into that elaboration. This is one of those stories that shows up in all three of the synoptics. It's actually the longest here in Luke. Mark and Matthew don't give us a whole lot about it, other than, or less about it. Let's put it that way. Luke interjects that it's the man's right hand, and some would extrapolate from that he's right-handed. Most of us are right-handed. I forget what the percentage is. So that it was inhibiting him from being able to work and to maintain a livelihood. So that's one element of this story that Luke points out that is missing from the other two versions of this story. Again, it's in all three of the synoptics, this story. So with that, before we start with looking at Luke, this is about the Sabbath. So let's look at back in the Old Testament what the Ten Commandments say about the Sabbath, so that we can build from there about what the Pharisees and the scribes are saying about the Sabbath. So Exodus chapter 20 verses 8 to 11 are what deal with the Sabbath in the Ten Commandments. It says, "Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, but he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy." Okay, so it's part of the Mosaic covenant. An idea is to remember God's creation, the creative act of God. Okay, if I could put it in a nutshell, perhaps. Hopefully that is adequate for you all. Interestingly, though, remember yesterday I mentioned that for as far as cooking and food preparation, the Jews would hire people to come in and cook food for them, or like when we were in Israel, you would have people serving the food to you. A lot of the food was pre-prepared for the Sabbath food, so it was just food that they warmed up rather than food that was actually cooked on that day. But nonetheless, it says here, nor any foreigner residing in your town. So that would seem to be kind of a problem there, isn't it? If we're going to be nitpicky about it, at least in our modern age. I don't know what the Pharisees are about, but we don't want to become a Pharisee, do we? By golly, that's what we're talking about today. So anyway, that's the commandment that they're dealing with, and what has happened is, of course, that the Pharisees have built up these fences around the law. Remember, we talk about fences, and that doesn't really tell you what constitutes work, does it? So the rabbis have to sit down, and the priests sit down and figure out what constitutes work. So with that, let's look at Luke. We haven't talked about Luke yet, or read Luke yet. Chapter 6, verses 6 to 11. "On another Sabbath, he entered the synagogue and taught, and there was a man there whose right hand was withered. The scribes and the Pharisees watched him to see whether he would cure on the Sabbath, so that they may find an accusation against him, even though he knew what they were thinking, he said to the man who had the withered hand, "Come and stand here." He got up and stood there. Then Jesus said to them, "I ask you, is it lawful to do good or to do harm on the Sabbath, to save life or to destroy it?" After looking around at all of them, he said to him, "Stretch out your hand." He did so, and his hand was restored. But they were filled with fury and discussed with one another what they might do to Jesus. Okay. Now, one thing I'll point out before we go any further, in that verse 11 where it says, "But they were filled with fury." That word that's translated as fury there is in the Greek means so angry as to be irrational. We never get that way, do we, as human beings? It's so angry that they can't see or think clearly. Obviously, that's the point. So we miss that in the translation, unfortunately. I don't think any of the English translations really extrapolate that adequately. Let's put it that way. Another one of those things we miss when we're not reading it in the Greek. Sad. So, at any rate, he has entered the synagogue, and this is a different Sabbath day. This is not the same Sabbath day. And again, remember, Sabbath is sundown on Friday until sundown on Saturday is what constitutes the Sabbath. Okay, that's the Sabbath day. It's not Sunday. We've changed that, and the reason we've changed that as Christians is because this is the Lord's Day. This is the Resurrection Day. So we've moved away from the Mosaic covenant in that portion anyway. Hopefully we've not abandoned it. We've talked about that before, but the idea is that we honor Christ on the day he was risen, which was a Sunday. Okay, enough of that. So the man with the withered hand is there, and again, as I mentioned, it's often commented about that it's his right hand, and so that probably, if he's right-handed, it causes a problem. This is a time of manual labor. People, most of the people, the average people, unless you were a priest or a scribe, well, scribe, you got to use your hand. Excuse me, forgive me for that. But most of the people, other than the priests, are using their mind and their voice, I guess. But it's a time of extremely manual labor. So having a deformity in your right hand, even if you're left-handed, is a major problem in trying to survive. Wouldn't have been an uncommon thing, though, because you don't have medicine and you don't have surgery, injuries, and what have you. You could easily end up with and birth defects, and you name it. There'd be a litany of reasons why this man could have a deformed hand, and we don't need to worry about that. That's not the point of the issue. The point is that he's there in the synagogue. Jesus is there in the synagogue. Now, the problem that the Pharisees have is it's a Sabbath day, and you're not supposed to do any work. Well, is doing God's bidding work? Well, I guess in a way, perhaps, but we're never supposed to, no matter what day of the week it is. If we feel the call to do God's work, is that not keeping the Sabbath holy? Doing God's work, is that not holy? Now, we're doing work that we may look at and say, okay, we're not supposed to go out and plow the field on Sunday. That's one thing. But we're doing God's work to heal and to care for God's children. Is that not keeping God's day holy? How much holier can you get than curing one of God's children of something that's burdening their life and probably causing a problem for, if he's got a family, if he's got a wife, if he's got a mother, whatever the situation there is. Again, it's a patriarchal society. The men are the ones that do the work. And so this man there who is hindered in his ability to maintain a livelihood, that's going to impact others. And without, most likely he might be all by himself. We don't know, but it's easy to see that and to see that message. So to me, the message here is that keeping God's day holy is, yes, we want to keep Sunday for us because that's the Lord's day. We want to keep that day holy, but it's never wrong to take care of God's children, to love God's creation. That's certainly keeping that day holy. And the problem that the Pharisees and the scribes have is they're so filled with this angst, and we see this in today's, people become irrational. They're so worked up about things. We're seeing that a lot right now, all over the place, folks. People get so invested emotionally in something that they can't see clearly. And can you imagine being so invested emotionally in what you think is right and what you think is wrong that you miss the Christ? This is the sad part of this story, that you don't see God's work being done right in front of you. I pray that we all are prayerful that we don't miss God's work being done in front of us, that we don't miss the Messiah, that we don't miss the message, that we don't miss that we're supposed to be doing God's work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So with that, be a blessing to someone today, and make sure that no matter what you're doing God's work all the time, because there's no rest from doing God's work. We change different levels of it as we age and as we go through the week and all of that. And also remember that first and foremost, one of the things we do always have to be careful of is that we're not saying, okay, well, it's Sunday, we go and worship, do my prayers on Sunday. The rest of the week I can go out and behave like a heathen if I want to. It's all good from here. I'm covered. I got in there and got my hour in the sanctuary on Sunday. That's not the point either, is it? So the point isn't that you showed up at the synagogue to the service. The point is that you're doing God's work. And that's what Jesus is trying to get across to the Pharisees, I think, in this message here about the withered hand. So with that, I'm going to let you go. And as I said, have a blessed day and be a blessing to someone today. We'll see you tomorrow. And don't forget, tomorrow is Drive-Through Communion. I'll be here yet for this week's Drive-Through Communion. But next week and the week after, Terry Waters is going to be out there as the head elder. Terry is the head elder. And so he'll be out there as the head elder providing communion to any that would want to come by on those 2 dates. All right? We will see you in the morning, as they say. Bye-bye.